Well, a very good evening and thank you for joining us on India Business Hour. I'm Ashmit and here are the headlines that we're tracking this hour. Retail inflation cools to 4.25% in May, comes at a 25-month low as food prices ease. Industrial output picks up in April, registers a growth of 3.2% on a yearly basis. We have big aspirations for India, says the new CEO of Honeywell. CEO Vimal Kapur hopes to double India business and grow at 15% over the next few years. Promises to leverage the supply base opportunity in India. That's an exclusive. Government tweaks the production-linked incentive scheme for semiconductors, allows individual applicants and removes the 45-day window. Union Cabinet will vet and approve all the applicants. Government claims COVID data breach reports are baseless and mischievous. But multiple reports claim a bot on Telegram Messenger is churning out personal details based on registered mobile number. Government imposes a stock limit on wheat until the 31st of March next year. Wholesalers can't stock more than 3,000 metric tons and retailers can't stock more than 10 metric tons per outlet. Food Secretary says that the stock limits have been imposed in view of unscrupulous elements hoarding wheat stock. Swiss banking giant UBS completes the takeover of crisis-hit Credit Suisse. This is the biggest bank merger since 2008 financial crisis. The deal brings to an end the once 70-year independent existence of Credit Suisse. Vedanta invites expressions of interest to restart activities at its Sterlite copper plant in Tuticorin. The plant has been closed for over 5 years now after police opened fire at those protesting a proposed expansion of the facility, killing 13 people and injuring over 100. Gujarat braces for cyclone Biparjoy. Evacuations begin in coastal areas of Saurashtra and Kutch after it intensifies into a very severe cyclonic storm. Landfall is likely on the 15th of June. Well, we'll come to all of that in just a bit, but before that, the US-India Business Council is hosting the two-day India Idea Summit in Washington, D.C. Now, the theme for this year's summit is trust, resilience and growth, and will focus on how these three principles underpin the US-India economic partnership across sectors. Now, the summit comes ahead of the Prime Minister Modi's state visit to US. Now, we, of course, will be getting you all the top voices, the exclusive interviews from the sidelines. In fact, our managing editor, Shireen Bhan, is currently in the US. She joins us on this broadcast. Shireen, tell us, what can we expect going ahead?
Well, good evening, guys, and welcome to our coverage here from Washington, D.C. We're right outside the White House. It's starting to get a bit cloudy here, but that's not the nature of the current engagement, the current partnership between India and the U.S. As you pointed out, Prime Minister Modi will be here in the U.S. to meet with President Biden. The state dinner will be on the 21st. And, of course, ahead of that, the U.S.-India Business Council is hosting the India Idea Summit, which is an annual summit with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, putting together leaders from both sides, of course, policymakers and business leaders from both sides. So what you can expect is to hear from Secretary of State Antony Blinken. There will be U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. She will be addressing leaders here about the potential and the promise of the U.S.-India partnership. And, of course, as we've been pointing out, the aspirational number has been $500 billion in terms of bilateral trade, but we're nowhere close to that just yet. And the hope is that we will sort of see the groundwork being done. The expectation is that there could be some crucial agreements that will be inked between the Prime Minister and President Biden on his visit. There could be agreements linked to defense cooperation and, of course, on the area of semiconductors as well. We had seen India and the U.S. sign an MOU. These are potential areas of future collaboration and partnership. Energy and climate, of course, will continue to be one of the big focus areas. So we will bring you all the action here from the IDEA Summit. But before that, we've been speaking with global CEOs, and I caught up with the global CEO of Honeywell, Vimal Kapoor. He's just taken over on the 1st of June as the CEO of the conglomerate, and they have big plans for India. They want to use India much more as a sourcing destination, and the hope and the aspiration is to double the India business over the next few years. Take a look at what he had to say.
Our portfolio is perfect fit for where India wants to go at this point of time. Look at what we do and where India wants to go. Honeywell is big in aerospace, and India wants to massively open its air transport sector. We've seen the news of Air India. We've seen the news of how other airlines are acquiring more planes. So that works perfectly for us because we are a big OEM provider for in the aerospace sector. India's big push for infrastructure. So infrastructure is not only roads or trains, but infrastructure is also about hospitals. It's about building new airports. And automating that infrastructure really plays well into Honeywell. Energy transition, India has some big plans to do energy transition in areas like hydrogen, adoption of more ethanol, and those are a few examples. And we are a big player in energy space, and we are working with all Indian customers as this energy transition work happens. So our portfolio fit is so strong with India wants to go, which gives me very high confidence that we are going to do very well in India next times to come.
What would the aspiration be for the India business? I mean, just in the past year, you've seen your order book grow by about 12%. Yep. You've seen revenues grow by about 17%. But given what you just spoke of, the strategic fit between India's priorities and Honeywell's priorities, what's the aspiration for the India business?
Big aspirations, I would say, and in both dimensions, to our domestic business and how we want to leverage India for our global operations. I think there's no reason our domestic business should not double in next 4 to 5 years' time. The India GDP growth is strong, and we should grow at least 2x of the GDP. So if India continues to grow 6 to 7% range, there is no reason that we should not grow 15%, every year over the next several years. So that's one big aspiration. From, we have a big global operation in India. We have been present to leverage India for engineering services, for our operations for last 30 years. But also I see now a shift of that. While we keep it, the shift of that is going to be much more manufacturing oriented. As Make in India becomes more relevant, we see more supply base being available, and we can source more from India. And I'll give an example. We set up, a manufacturing facility along with our partner, Naveen Chemicals. They have set up a chemical manufacturing facility captive for Honeywell in state of Gujarat. And that to me is a great example of how we are leveraging India's efficient cost manufacturing, facilities for our global business. And as I mentioned before, as Make in India creates more supply base, in defense, in aerospace, in other sectors, we expect that sourcing will become another priority for us for India. So it's going to be three-dimensional. It's going to be our domestic business. It's going to be our continued global operation for our engineering operations, and then more and more sourcing from India.
Well, that was Shireen Bhan in conversation with the top voices. Washington, D.C., she will be getting us the latest voices from the US IBC India IDEA Summit. Let's shift focus now to back home. Today's market action. The market ended near the flat line as financials continued to underperform. Nifty and Sensex ended flat but with a slight positive bias. Nifty Bank ended mildly in the red, but mid-caps outperformed. That index ended 0.5% in the green. Meanwhile, retail inflation cooled off to a 25-month low of 4.25% in the month of May. As food prices eased, inflation has remained within the Reserve Bank's tolerance band for the third consecutive month. Meanwhile, India's industrial output picked up for more the month of April. Lata Venkatesh, in fact, is joining us now with more. Lata, help us decode these numbers.
Extremely pleasant set of numbers. The May inflation is lower than what the street expected, lower than even Reserve Bank's derived number of 4.4. It's come in at 4.25. And the IIP number for April also coming in at 4.25 against expectations of 1.3. Which was the CNBC-TV18 poll. So both growth higher than expected and inflation lower than expected. That's the best combo you can think of. In inflation itself, the positive is that core inflation has come in at 5% versus April's 5.2 and versus the CNBC-TV18 poll of 5.3. Core inflation tends to be sticky. That fall is more than expected is very important. And finally, food inflation also coming in a good 1 percentage point lower than last month's 3.8 for cereal inflation, which was feared because of rice prices, has not materialized. Cereal prices have fallen 2% over last month. The composite picture of inflation is that it is extremely under control, but economists and the Reserve Bank are not extrapolating this as a positive number for the rest of the year, simply because we have a potential El Nino event waiting to strike, perhaps impact monsoon. And therefore, at the moment, it's good news for now. No one is extrapolating it for the full year. Again, in growth as well, industrial output numbers very good in terms of consumer non-durables, also very good in terms of manufacturing, coming in at 4.9%. But there is a bit of a wait and watch in case the global economy decelerates in the second half. For now, a happy set of numbers on growth and inflation.
Yes, it's a good number. So going forward, I think a lot of factors is likely to play on inflation. While the global situation seems to be more or less in order, and that should bring down the goods inflation. I think services inflation domestically, especially from healthcare and education, all these are on the relatively higher side, and they are relatively quite sticky.
It's a good positive surprise, and in May all of us had expected it to decelerate significantly, but the food price inflation deceleration is very high, which is encouraging. Only thing, this data is for the month of May, and we are seeing now in June sequentially prices of wheat, rice, everything firming up. So I think RBI's cautious stance gets vindicated by today's growth and inflation mix.
Well, with India's power demand hitting a new high, government has allowed coal-based power plants to extend operations by at least 3 more months. Now, India consumed 223 gigawatts of electricity on the 9th of June, which was a record high. With a heat wave affecting large parts of the country, power consumption is on the rise. Government expects power demand to hit 230 gigawatts. Well, the government has imposed a stock limit on wheat with immediate effect until the 31st of March 2024 to check the price rise and prevent hoarding and speculation. The limits have been imposed on wholesalers, retailers and processors in all states and union territories. Abhimanyu Sharma now joins us with more details. Abhimanyu, take us through the limits that have now been imposed till March of next year.
The union government has imposed a stock limit of 3,000 metric tons for wholesalers and 10 metric tons for retailers of wheat. The move is going to be applicable till the 31st of March 2024 and is aimed at checking the rising prices of wheat. The Food Secretary has indicated that there is no need for any wheat imports since there are ample wheat as well as rice stocks available in India. However, the export of wheat is not going to be restarted anytime soon. Also, the Food Secretary had indicated that a month's time will be given to all wholesalers, traders and retailers to comply with this order. The intent of the government is not punitive, but it wants to ensure that ample stock is offloaded in the market. FCI in all likelihood is also going to offload wheat stock in the market to control prices as well as ensure that prices are cooled down with ample wheat stocks and reining in of unscrupulous elements which are currently hoarding stocks of wheat.
Well, the government has tweaked the production-linked incentive scheme for semiconductors and display fabs. The cabinet will now approve all proposals for setting up these units. Now, earlier in the case of compound semiconductors and silicon for photonics, the Secretary of Ministry of Electronics and IT, or the minister, was responsible for granting approvals. As per the changes, there is no minimal requirement of applicants for granting approvals for setting up of display fab units. The 45-day window for applications has also been removed. The applications will now be evaluated on an ongoing basis. India and UAE held their first joint committee meeting under the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal said that the RBI and the UAE Central Bank are in active dialogue for rupee dirham trade. He said that talks were progressing at a fast pace.
We got talking about how we can make business more attractive between the two countries, how we can help our business persons reduce operating costs and transaction costs. And the germs of this rupee dirham trade were actually sown in that meeting. It's just about a year since then, but both countries have made significant progress. The Reserve Bank of India and the Central Bank of UAE have been in very active dialogue. The Ministry of Finance is very supportive and handling the entire issue.
The Indian government has slammed reports of data breach on the COVID portal as mischievous and without any basis. The government's rebuttal came after multiple reports flagged an alleged data breach of COVID vaccination data. Parikshit Luthra now joins us with more details. Parikshit, tell us, what does the government have to say about these reports of breaches?
Well, all day today, there have been a large number of reports on social media about about personal data of individuals, politicians, bureaucrats, all being leaked on social media by a Telegram bot. There were questions being raised about the privacy and about data safety measures with regard to the COVID app. Hours later, we saw a response from the Ministry of Health. They said that all these reports are mischievous and without any basis. The COVID app is absolutely safe and there is no report of any breach or leak so far. At the same time, the Minister for Electronic and IT, Rajiv Chandrasekhar, went on to say that there has been no leak of the COVID app as of now. Whatever data is there in public domain, it may have been because of a prior breach. Later, he clarified again that there is nothing that has been leaked from COVID app in the past as well. Whatever has been leaked from some other database. It is interesting to note that in 2021, there were reports of a leak from the COVID app, but that was vehemently denied by the government. For the moment, the entire investigation has been given to CERT-in, which is the nodal body for investigating all kinds of cyber crimes, all kinds of hacks of government websites and government departments. For the moment, net, the government saying that there is no evidence of any kind of unauthorized access to the COVID app, any kind of leak or hack, but a final report is awaited.
Right, Parikshit, thanks a lot for that update. With that, it's time now to slip into a very short break. But coming up, Gujarat braces for cyclone Biparjoy. Evacuations begins in coastal areas of Saurashtra and Kutch after it intensifies into a very severe cyclonic storm. Details when we come back.
The MG Cluster Blackstone. Drive unstoppable.
Loan. अरे जिसको देखो दे रहे हैं लोन और इसको उसको सबको चाहिए लोन
जो घर लेना हो ले लोन गोल्ड लोन लेना हो ले लोन बिजनेस बढ़ाना हो ले लोन अरे लोन ये कौन सा है सही लोन
कभी सही इंटरेस्ट तो बोल
कई छुपी शर्तों का झोल
अरे स्टॉप अब गोल को छोड़ सुन सीधी बात के बोल अब हर सपना होगा पूरा जो तेरा है अधूरा और IIFL फाइनेंस पे है मेरा भरोसा पूरा गोल्ड से लेकर बिजनेस पर्सनल से लेकर होम हर जरूरत को मिलेगा लोन तो हुआ ना यही सही लोन IIFL फाइनेंस करता है सीधी बात
Delivery. There is a large block. Understand in the block deal, the leading private equity investor was a seller. BHEL is buzzing in trade today and there is an anticipation of a large order coming for BHEL very soon. the promoter entity of Adani Group. I understand from sources were on the selling side, and a large leading US-based fund was a buyer in today's block. We have confirmation of both. The promoter entities are sold and have raised 15,500 crores by selling stake in the 4 group companies, and the buyer is GQG Partners.
Tune in to NSE Closing Bell as we spot deals before they happen, decode their impact on stock prices, and help you stay ahead of the markets. CNBC-TV18. Follow the leader.
Welcome back. Now, Swiss bank UBS has formally completed the takeover of Credit Suisse. The group will now manage UBS and Credit Suisse as separate banks for the short term. The takeover will also enlarge UBS's balance sheet to more than $1 trillion and boost its workforce to 120,000 employees. In a statement, UBS Group CEO Sergio Ermotti said that this takeover will not compromise on the company's strong culture and conservative risk approach. Meanwhile, UBS has appointed Mihir Doshi as the India head of the company. Doshi joined Credit Suisse in 2006. Well, the latest now in the Go First insolvency case, the Committee of Creditors, which was formed after the airline was admitted into the bankruptcy process, held its first meeting on last Friday to take stock of the situation. CNBC-TV18 has learnt that they have made some key appointments to kickstart the resolution process. Ritu Singh now joins us with more. Ritu, tell us, what are you picking up?
Well, the Go First Committee of Creditors has made some key appointments to kickstart the resolution process of the airline, and the most important one of these is replacing the resolution professional. Now, remember, the NCLT had appointed Alvarez and Marcel's Abhilash Lal as the interim resolution professional, but in its very first Committee of Creditors meeting, the lenders have chosen to elect EY Shailendra Ajmera as the resolution professional who will be running the airline as long as it remains under the IBC. The COC has also elected EY or Ernst & Young as the process advisor and J. Sagar Associates as the legal counsel to the lenders in the process. Now, as far as the important matter of interim financing is concerned, remember, we had reported that Go First had sought a little over 200 crores from its lenders as interim financing. On that, the discussions are still on, but lenders want some comfort from the DGCA that there will be regulatory support for the airline. So that matter is still up, for discussion among the lenders. As far as the revival itself is concerned, it's not just the financing. Go First is facing, various challenges from its lessors who want to deregister the aircraft or restrain Go First from using them, and that matter is still pending in court. So we'll have to see how that progresses. As far as the dues are concerned, to the banks alone, there are dues of about 6,500 crores in Deutsche Bank, Central Bank of India, Bank of Baroda, IDBI Bank. These are some of the key lenders that are involved.
Right, Ritu, thanks a lot for that. Now, Vedanta has invited expressions of interest to restart activities at its Sterlite copper plant in Tuticorin. The company has tried to sell this plant multiple times in the last 5 years. Now, remember, the plant has been shut since 2018 after the police opened fire at those protesting a proposed expansion of this facility. Jude Sanath now joins us with more details. Jude, tell us, what are you picking up?
Well, an expression of interest by Vedanta and Sterlite Copper in several major dailies today said that the company was looking out for expressions of interest pertaining to taking over and eventually restarting, quote-unquote, that controversial copper smelter in Tuticorin, run, of course, by Sterlite Copper. The EOI says that interested parties should be in a position to employ over 4,000 people in and around the Tuticorin area. Now, incidentally enough, sources from Sterlite Copper tell me that it is crucial that these EOIs are secured at the moment, since restoring and restarting the plant is bound to be an extremely significant activity, given that it has been shut for close to 5 years. And in fact, these activities activities will be undertaken in the run-up to the eventual sale of the plant that Sterlite Copper hopes to achieve in the near future. Now, incidentally, the plant has been shut for 5 years, yes, but the Supreme Court has allowed maintenance and upkeep activity at the plant itself, since there are several key materials and machinery there that would have suffered some sort of some difficulties in the 5 years owing to the continued closure of the plant. Incidentally, that EOI expression as far as maintenance and upkeep and restart includes safety assessments, OEM assessments, building, repair and certification of existing plant machinery. Remember, Sterlite Copper was shut ever since 2018, in the aftermath of those controversial protests which led to the killing of 13 people in police firing at the plant. Ever since, the case has been ongoing, but the court has allowed maintenance and upkeep of the plant itself, although Vedanta did say late last year that it was open and actively considering selling the plant itself. So even as maintenance and upkeep activity is underway, Vedanta has issued an EOI for what it hopes will be the eventual sale of this controversy-ridden copper smelter.
In other news, Cyclone Biparjoy has developed into an extremely severe cyclonic storm and is likely to make landfall along the Saurashtra-Kutch coast on Thursday. Prime Minister Narendra Modi held a high-level meeting today to review the preparedness. The Prime Minister asked the officials to take every possible measure to ensure that people living in vulnerable locations are safely evacuated. The Indian Met Department had issued a red alert for parts of West Gujarat, including the Kutch region.
While, from today evening, it will also start slightly weakening, and when it will cross, it will be around, it will be again very severe cyclonic storm with a wind speed of 125 kilometer to 135 kilometer, gusting to 150 kilometer.
The Home Ministry has set up a governor-led committee with representation from several tribal groups to facilitate the peacemaking process in Manipur. The situation in the violence-marred state remains tense. The statewide internet ban has also been extended till 15th of June. Former Italian Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi has died at the age of 86. He had been suffering from health-related issues with repeated hospitalization since September 2020. The controversial media mogul served as the nation's prime minister thrice over a period of 9 years. His party is a junior partner in the Meloni government. Well, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of India Business Hour. Thank you so much for watching. News and updates continue right here on CNBC-TV18.
What if you could get your